Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to tell you all about the 46 books that I read in June. So yeah, I thought it was going to be less because lockdown ended and I went back to work, etc., but I still read 46 books. Like a normal, well-adjusted, mentally healthy person, right? So I've got most of the books here to show you, but a lot of them were actually either I borrowed them from work or the library, or I read them on as an ebook. So hopefully I'll remember to talk about all of those because sometimes I forget. But we're going to start with the books that I hated and then work our way up to the ones that I really liked. So I feel like before this year I've never given a book a 2 stars because I just felt really bad, and I was like, well, even if I didn't like it, it's a story, so they wrote it, yay. But I have two 2-star books here. So the first one, and actually the first one I read of the month, is Fable by Adrienne Young. I feel like this is an unpopular opinion, but I've also seen a couple people who didn't like it. This just basically follows a girl named Fable who was abandoned on an island by her father, who is like a pirate-ish / merchant. There was no plot. I was very bored. A lot of the reviews were like, wow, the atmosphere is so amazing. I felt like I was at sea. And I couldn't disagree more. Maybe I was just in the wrong mood, but I thought that this was extremely boring and I will not be continuing the series. I also read The Wives by Tarryn Fisher. My least favorite thriller I've ever read, possibly except Survive the Night by Riley Sager. Mild spoilers for this ahead because I can't really talk about why I didn't like it without slightly spoiling it. But basically this follows a woman who is a polygamist. So her husband has multiple wives and she starts getting curious about one of them and stalking them, etc., etc. Very interesting plot, that's very different for a thriller, I feel. But basically Tarryn Fisher used mental health as a plot twist, which I find ethically questionable. But even aside from that, it just felt like the twist allowed her to just be like, oh no, none of that happened, or that didn't really matter, or just it was just very convenient. So I found this very frustrating. I mean, I couldn't put it down. It was very fast to read and very engaging, but I thought it was stupid. Ooh, another one that I gave 2.5 stars was An Emotion of Great Delight by Tahira Mafi. So I read this from the library before my pre-order came in, and then I immediately returned my pre-order because I didn't like it. I don't know, maybe I was missing something, maybe there's an artistic quality that didn't quite get through to me, but it just, it ended and I genuinely thought that there was 100 pages missing of my book. It was very short and the writing was really good, but I don't know, it just was so jarring and such a sudden ending, and I felt like there was no resolution, but not in a good way. So I don't know, this one was weird. Okay, those were all of the bad ratings, so let's get into the 3.5 stars, which I still enjoyed, just not a ton. Okay, so in a very shocking moment to myself, I gave Terrier by Tamora Pierce 3 stars. This is the first book in her Becca Cooper trilogy. I read this a long time ago, when it first came out in 2007 or something crazy. No, that's not right. I was 11 years old then. Yeah, okay, actually 2006. So I read this when it came out and I remember really liking it, but this literally took me 3 weeks to finish. I don't know why. I thought the writing style was really hard to get into. It's written as a diary, which I do enjoy, but something about it just didn't connect with me. I am going to finish them because I need to read every Tamora Pierce book because I love her. But yeah, this one I found to be a slog. I also started the Tiger at Midnight series this month. So the first book I loved, you'll see that later. And then I read the second book, The Archer at Dawn. These are by Swati Tudala, and gave this one a 3 stars. So this is a series, it's an enemies to lovers, cat and mouse style romance, which is super awesome. It's set in an Indian-inspired world, and there's a female assassin and a male guard. It's reminds me of Laia and Elias from An Ember in the Ashes. But I just found this book definitely suffered from second book syndrome. Not a lot happened until the last 50 pages. I still read it really fast, so it wasn't terrible, hence the 3 stars. I'm very hopeful for the third book in the series. My pre-order is almost here, and I feel like it's going to redeem it. I really hope so. Alrighty, now we're on to 3.5 star ratings. So these, in my mind, are I did really enjoy them. There was just something missing. So really enjoy is a strong word. I enjoyed these, there was just something missing. So the first one I have is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. I never know how to say his name. And I'm conflicted about this rating because I loved reading this, and it's just the ending that's throwing off my rating. I thought the twist was kind of out of nowhere and weird. But the atmosphere of this book was awesome. So basically this is a dark academia thriller. It's set at Cambridge. There's a professor who the main character suspects of being a serial killer, basically. So it was very atmospheric. I definitely want to reread this in the fall, but yeah, I finished it with a weird taste in my mouth, So we're going with 3.5 stars, but I'm not really sure. I also read Hunted by the Sky by Tanaz Bathina. This is the first book in a fantasy duology inspired, again, by Indian mythology. And yeah, I really liked the plot and the world. I thought they were very well done and very interesting. The only thing that brought this down from a 4-star was the characters. They felt very like the main character's only personality trait was wanting to overthrow the empire, you know? Which, like, of course she wants to overthrow the empire. That's awesome. But, like, what else is happening in her, you know? She wasn't very interesting to me, but I will be reading the second book for sure, and I really liked this. It just wasn't perfect. Oh, yes, I also gave Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune a 3.5 stars. This one, I felt very, like, emotionally detached throughout the whole story. I was reading an e-arc of it, and I just felt like I was tapping the pages, you know? Like, I didn't really care. It felt very surface level, but then I did cry at the end. So I was thinking 3 stars, but then I bumped it up to 3.5 because it did, you know, emotionally impact me. This basically follows a man named Wallace, who reminds me a lot of Scrooge from The Christmas Carol. He's like lives for work, doesn't care about people. Also reminds me of the dad from Elf. And then he dies, and he meets this like highwayman to... Sorry, cat had to go out. So he goes to this like in-between place between life and the afterlife, and there's a guy there who like runs it. So it had a lot of interesting lessons. I don't know, didn't connect with it. Okay, so now we are into the 4-star books, and the 4 and 5-star piles are very large this month, so it was excellent. I feel like a 4-star for me sometimes, like some of these books are a little bit forgettable, but after I read them I thought, ooh, that was good, 4 stars. So I really do need to work on my rating system a little bit, but I thought that all of these were worth the read, I guess. So I read Vengeful by V.E. Schwab this month, which is the sequel to Vicious. I loved Vicious. I gave it 5 stars, and I did really enjoy Vengeful. I just felt like it dragged a little bit, maybe, and nothing... I mean, things happened. They're very fast-paced, and a lot happened. It just felt like, as a book, I wasn't exactly sure what the plot was supposed to be, maybe? I think that the best thing about this duology is the pacing. It's just, like, breakneck. You can't put it down, because every couple pages there's a cliffhanger. Everything is so quick, and I love it so much. I also love Sydney, who is one of the main characters. So I really hope she does actually write the 3rd book in this series. I thought it was so good. I also read Across the Green Grass Fields by Shannon Maguire. I always struggle to say that. This is the most recent book in the Wayward Children series, which I either adore or think are like pretty good. So this one was pretty good. It might be more of a 3.5, to be honest. This one follows a horse girl, basically, and she is intersex, which was really interesting. I had never read about an intersex character before. There was a lot of awesome feminist messages in here, and I really enjoyed reading it. They're so short, they're just so like captivating and engaging. So I will definitely be continuing to read this series, and I like listening to them on audiobook because I can't justify the price for such little hardcovers. But I definitely would recommend this series, especially if you're into portal fantasy. They're really, really good. Okay, so the last book I finished in June, actually, was Dark Roads by Chevy Stevens. This is a physical arc. I read one of this author's books a couple of years ago, and I've reread it. It like really stuck with me, but it's very dark and almost feels like just dark for the shock value. You know, there's a lot of violence against women, and it's super messed up, and I just don't know how I feel about it. So this book specifically is set in rural BC, I think. Yeah, it's a highway that's inspired by the Trail of Tears, which is a real thing, where Indigenous women go missing in Canada. No one knows why. No one's really trying to figure it out. So that made me a little bit uncomfortable that this was based on Indigenous tragedy, but centering white people. So I would like to hear the opinion of an Indigenous reviewer on this. Setting aside that, my 4 stars is quite tentative. I couldn't put this down. It was super, super gripping. The characters were very, not like, I didn't necessarily relate to them, but they were easy to root for. So I do like Chevy Stevens' writing style. I think that she infuses like a lot of excellent writing into her thrillers instead of just leaving them surface level, but I did have some qualms about this one for sure. Also gave 4 stars to 1,000 Nights by E.K. Johnston. This is a YA fantasy retelling of the, I can't remember the actual name of the myth, but it's the story where the girl tells the evil prince a story every night and he is going to kill her, but then she keeps him from killing her with the stories. First of all, look at the end of the dust jacket for this book. Ouch. Stunning, beautiful. This read more like an adult magical realism mythology type book. It was very slow, so I think I could definitely see people going into this and being disappointed. If you're expecting something like The Wrath and the Dawn, that's not what you're going to get. But I thought that it was very beautiful. I love lyrical writing, so this was definitely a hit for me. I also read Warrior of the Wild by Trisha Levenseller. I love Trisha Levenseller. She's so fun. This one follows a girl named Resmira. She is a warrior in her village, but then she gets sabotaged during like her trial to become a official warrior. So she's banished, and she has to kill the god that rules over her country, basically. Yeah, they're so fluffy and simple. The romance in this was super cute, and I fly through these. They take me maybe 2 hours to read, so we do love a good Trisha Levenseller book, and I feel like I always give them 4 stars. One of the most surprising series that I read this month was the Lunar Chronicles. I had read Cinder and Scarlet, I think, and I think I stopped there like a couple years ago. Maybe I was 18 or something. And I remember enjoying them, but I thought that I might be kind of past the age where I'd like the Lunar Chronicles now. So I gave the first 2 4 stars, and as you will see, they just got better and better. But yeah, these are basically sci-fi retellings of Disney princesses, I guess. So the first one is Cinderella, and the second one is Little Red Riding Hood, who I guess is not a Disney princess. Fairy tale princesses, I guess, is what I mean. So yeah, they are honestly so much fun. They're so good. I really like how each book is centered around a different heroine, but they're all woven together so seamlessly that by the end it all makes sense. So yeah, these 2 were really, really good, and I'm excited to talk about the rest. I wanted to give myself a nice childhood reread this month, so I reread the first Pendragon book, The Merchant of Death. I've heard it said Pendragon and Pendragon, I'm not sure. Me and my sister loved these when we were little, and they're still good. I feel like these would be so good for boys, especially, who like to read boy main characters. But especially if you like Percy Jackson or anything like that. This follows a boy who is basically thrown into this like set of alternate realities. So there's 10 different worlds. Someone's trying to topple them all so that the world ends, and he has to save each world. So each of the 10 books is set in a different place. Yeah, this one's way shorter than the other ones. I really want to continue the series. I have almost all of them now. And I feel like these need more hype. I managed to read both books in the Warcross duology by Marie Lu, and these were actually very good. I don't know why I keep using this tone of surprise. I was expecting Marie Lu to be good. But these are much more sci-fi than most of the other stuff that she writes. They follow a teenage hacker / bounty hunter named Emika. In this world, there's like a VR game almost, but way more advanced than that has taken over society. Like everyone pretty much lives in it, and it's got this game that I didn't really understand. But yeah, there's a lot of questions in this book about like the morality of controlling people and like VR and different stuff like that. I thought the first book was a little more interesting than the second, but it did wrap it up pretty well. Also, I have a signed copy. It's fun. So yeah, this was a really good, really fast-paced sci-fi duology, and I would definitely recommend it. I am working my way through Jennifer L. Armentrout's extensive backlist, so I'm reading the Origin series right now, and I read The Burning Shadow, which is book 2 this month. These are so enjoyable. Like, they're not a great work of literature. I never think that it's going to be when I'm reading a JLA book. But yeah, these are a companion to the Lux series, so they follow... I don't know, is it a spoiler? I'll be vague. So the first series is basically Twilight, but with a different supernatural creature, and this kind of expands the world after the events of the first series, so you definitely want to read the first ones first. But yeah, this is a good paranormal romance. It gave me exactly what I wanted. I have this beautiful edition of The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. This is an Illumicrate book, and I really, really like this. I actually had an e-arc, so I read it half in the arc and half in this book. Clearly I didn't get to it in time. But yeah, this is the start of a new epic fantasy trilogy. It's got a like sapphic enemies to lovers, kind of princess and a guard type vibes. Princess and a handmaid, I guess, but like, you know. It was really, really excellent. Very long. I felt like maybe it dragged a little bit in the middle, but I'll definitely be continuing the trilogy, and I'd like to check out Tasha Suri's other series as well. Okay, next up I have 2 of the books that I picked out in my, like reading the first couple chapters of a book to decide on my TBR video. So I read This Mortal Coil by Emily Suvada and Frostblood by Ellie Blake. Fun fact, these are both the first book in a trilogy by Canadian authors, so that's fun. I ended up DNFing Dorothy Must Die. I just couldn't bring myself to care. So there's that. But This Mortal Coil was really, really interesting. It is set in like a future version of our world where there's like this weird pandemic that kind of turns you into a zombie. And this girl is like a teenage hacker living in isolation, trying to overthrow the evil empire, basically. Super fast paced, super fun. I love anything to do with zombies, even when they're just like quasi zombies. So I'm looking forward to continuing with this. I do feel like a lot of the science went over my head, but that's fine because I don't necessarily care. Like she'd be talking about hacking stuff and I was like, this is all gibberish to me, but that's fine. And Frostblood follows a girl named Ruby who is a Fireblood, and she's been trying to hide her powers from the ruling Frostblood class. She ends up training with the rebels, etc., etc. Yeah, it was really good. It didn't like stick with me that much. I've kind of forgotten the ending a little bit already, which is not a great sign. But I do want to continue the trilogy for sure. This might be more of a 3.5 now that I'm talking about it. Okay, and then Daughter of Sparta by Claire M. Andrews. This was really, really fun. This I thought was going to be an urban fantasy for some reason. It's very much not. It's a retelling of Daphne's myth, so there's a lot of Apollo and Artemis in here. I don't think I knew a single thing about Daphne before. Now I do. This reminded me almost of like, it was kind of between Percy Jackson and Song of Achilles in terms of like writing and plot. It was very action-packed. I found the characters a little underdeveloped again. There wasn't a lot of motivation other than like, you know, what regular people would feel. But the writing was excellent. I feel like there's a classic like Greek mythology retelling writing style that I really enjoy. It's like quite lyrical, but also simple. And I found that here. This is another one I'm a little bit conflicted on. I read Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. I love Never Let Me Go by this author, so I was really excited about this one, and I ordered a fun copy with sprayed edges and a ribbon, but like I couldn't put this down. I love reading his writing. It's so engaging. But I just felt like I wanted more. Like there was a couple twists, but I felt like there was going to be another one, and then the book ended, and I was like, I feel a little bit underwhelmed. So I'm not sure. I need to discuss this with someone. I'm making my coworker read it. And I want to read more by Kazuo Ishiguro, I think. Plot. I forgot to tell you about the plot. Yeah. So this follows Clara, who is an artificial friend, kind of like a AI robot type thing, but very advanced. And she goes to live with a family. And I can't really say much more about the plot than that without question mark spoiling things, I guess. But yeah, this was very interesting. It made me think a lot, but I just wanted a little bit more. Now we are into the 4.5s, and I only have 3 of the Lunar Chronicles books here. So I gave Crest, Winter, and Fairest, which is like a novella, 4.5 stars. I adored them. Winter, I was expecting to take me like a week because it's got like 820 pages or something, which is crazy. But it took me a day and a half because I was so interested in it. Yeah, this is the last book, and then this follows the Evil Queen. Basically, you get kind of like her backstory. She's real messed up. Yeah, I just feel like the plot really took it up a notch in these books. The characters were really well developed, and yeah, these have like a place of honor on my shelf now, so I'm super excited that I read them all. Okay, I realized I was forgetting to look at my notebook to see what I missed. So, were there any 4.5? Yes, so I read The Last Nomad by Shugri Said Sela. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but there'll be the cover here. So this is actually a memoir, which I used to read a lot more of. She grew up in Somalia, and it was very dark, very gruesome read. Lots of horrible things happened to her, but it was so well written. I really enjoyed it. I might even buy a copy to put on my shelf because it was so good. So I would definitely recommend this one if you're into memoirs. I also read The Other Side of Perfect by Mariko Turk. This one I borrowed from work because it was a YA contemporary, and I don't usually love those, but I am considering buying this one. I can't remember the main character's name, which is terrible. Was it Amelia, or am I totally making that up? Anyway, the main girl, she was a ballerina, like trying to be a professional, and then she had a horrible accident and broke her leg, so now she can't. She ends up joining like a musical theater club at her school, and it helps her get through all of her like, you know, PTSD basically about having to leave ballet, etc. I just am fascinated with ballet, so if it's in a book, I'll read it, even though I'm not a dancer at all. So I really enjoyed this. I like musical theaters, I like ballet, I like people overcoming their problems, and I thought it was a great read. Another one I borrowed from work was The Chosen and the Beautiful by Nevo. This is another one I might buy, but it's really short and it's an adult hardcover, so it's like $37 or something crazy. It is a Great Gatsby retelling from the perspective of Jordan Baker, who is queer, Asian, and has some sort of magic, kind of. In hindsight, this is a little bit less good than I thought it was after finishing. It really doesn't add a lot to the actual story of The Great Gatsby. I was expecting it to kind of diverge from the plot, but it doesn't. It's just the exact same story with a little bit of magical realism sprinkled in. The writing is beautiful, and I really liked reading from Jordan Baker's perspective, but yeah, it would have been a 5 stars, I think, if it had done a lot different. Okay, now we're into the 5 stars, and as usual, I've been very generous with my 5-star ratings. So, one of the books that I don't have in my hands yet, but I did order it immediately after finishing, is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. This was so good. This is an adult romance following a travel writer, which I love because I travel, usually. I was expecting it to just be like a nice little fluffy read, and then I couldn't put it down, and I sobbed at the end, and I can't stop thinking about it. It was so good. The characters are so well written. I felt like I saw myself in both of them, and I think anyone would, really. But oh my god, this was so good. I immediately ordered it, like I said, and her other book, Beach Read. So I'm very excited to read that. I also read the first Heartstopper book. It was so cute. This is another one. I was expecting to like it, but I'm not a big graphic novel person, and YA contemporaries just, they're fine usually. But this was 5 stars. It was so cute. It made me so happy. I'm really excited to continue with the graphic novels. It was just precious and perfect. Okay, and then the only other book I don't have with me is Neon Gods by Katie Roberts. This is a adult romance, definitely adult. And it's like a retelling of Hades and Persephone, but it's set in like a modern city. The world building is a little bit weird, but like that's not why you're reading it. Very steamy, very good. Again, couldn't put it down. Might buy it. Definitely would recommend if you're into romance. Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. I cannot stop thinking about this book. This is another one that I borrowed from the library actually, and then immediately ordered. This is a retelling of Ariadne's myth. Again, I didn't know a ton about her. I do now. The writing was so beautiful. I think I liked this more than I liked Circe and the Song of Achilles. So if you're a fan, check this one out. Oh, another new all-time favorite. I say as if all 5 stars aren't new all-time favorites. So this is Blood Like Magic by Lisa L. Sambury. This is the first book in a new series. It's like urban fantasy with a little bit of sci-fi. So it's set in a futuristic Toronto. The main character's name is Voya. She is from a family of witches. So they have to like complete a mission from their ancestors to get their like full magic. And hers is to kill her true love. So that's fun. There's also like a cool like DNA dating app thing in here. There was just a lot that I wasn't expecting. I annotated it. The writing is really good. Let me read you the first sentence. There's something about lounging in a bath of blood that makes me want to stay until my fingers shrivel enough to show the outlines of my bones. So I read that and I was like, damn. There's also a lot of queer rep in this book. The love interest is trans. There's tons of queer side characters, and I thought it was really, really awesome. And the cover is perfect. So I threw in my token historical fiction, and it destroyed my life. This is The Island of Sea Women by Lisa C. I have loved her other books, and obviously needed to read this one. It is set on, what's the island called again? I think it's pronounced Jeju. So it's a Korean island where there is like a cultural tradition of women diving for not fish, like sea, things that you can eat from the sea. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But yeah, it just follows the main girl's, Mija, her whole life. There's a complicated female relationship in here. There's a ton of atrocities that I had no idea happened. Like I had no concept of this period of history. Her books are always very dark and upsetting, but also very hopeful is a strong word. Yeah, they're so impactful. I think that if you like Kristen Hanna, you'd really like Lisa C. And this one was incredible. This was a very good month for romances. I read The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary, which was kindly sent to me by the publisher, and cried again. So I read The Flat Share, was it last month? Yeah, I read The Flat Share by this author in May and adored it. They're definitely a little less steamy than like a couple of the other ones I talked about, or like any Talia Hibbert books, but something about them really just gets to me. This one made me cry too. It follows an ex-couple named Dylan and Addie through a series of convoluted events. They end up having to share a car to drive to a wedding with their other friends. So you get to learn about their past and their present kind of in like interwoven timelines, and it was so good. 10 out of 10. I keep picking up a book and being like, wow, another amazing one, but I'm literally in my pile of 5 stars, so of course they're all amazing. But this is Girls at the Edge of the World by Laura Brooke Robson. This was completely a cover buy. I saw something about apocalypse, and I saw this cover, and I thought, pre-order. So it is a sapphic apocalyptic, not quite fantasy, sapphic apocalypse book with aerial silks in it. It's so good. Basically, they are living in a world, there's no magic, so it's not fantasy, but it gives off fantasy vibes. So there's these floods every like 1,000 years and the world ends. So there's like 10 floods counting down to the big first flood. And there's gonna be a flood. So there's tons of religious allegories in this. That was the worst plot description. I hope it kind of came across well, because this book was so good. Lots of really cool religious allegory in this book. There's obviously some comparisons to like Noah's Ark and other biblical events. wonderful sapphic romance. The aerial silks added a really cool element. I can't recommend this enough. It's also a standalone. I'm pretty sure it's a standalone. It wraps up nicely. And I'm now forcing this upon everyone. Okay, I already talked about the second book in the series. So I've got the first one here, The Tiger at Midnight by Swati Chirdala. This is almost 500 pages, but it really doesn't feel like it. I think I read it in a day. I've got some tabs here, as you can see. Did I write in the book? No, I just tabbed. I think I tabbed major plot points so that I would remember them. But yeah, I already told you about the plot. This was just so good. The romance really builds up to a nice crescendo in this one, and I loved it. Another physical arc that I managed to read was The Ballerinas by Rachel Kapelke-Dale. Fun fact about the author, I actually read her like travel-ish memoir that she co-wrote with her best friend like 5 years ago and loved it. So I had no idea that this was the same person. But again, I saw ballet and I was like, sold. So this is kind of told between two timelines. 14 years ago, a girl named Delphine abandoned her ballet career for choreography because there was a secret that could upend everyone's lives. Pretty classic. So you are trying to find out what the secret is and what's going on in the present day and in the past. It was just really, really good. Again, I read it in a day, maybe even in one sitting. If you like ballet, if you like female friendships, you will love this. I gave myself another reread this month because I wanted to reread Serpent and Dove before the third book comes out later this month. I was worried that I wasn't gonna like this because I read it when I was just kind of getting back into reading. I was never out of it, but you know, I was getting like more and more into it. So I thought that this might like pale in comparison to all the amazing books I've read in the last year, but it was still so fun. I actually annotated it, like I wrote in the book a ton. Like I think if you looked at this with a critical eye, you wouldn't think it was good, probably. Some of the events are a little bit ridiculous. This follows a witch and a witch hunter who have to get married for some questionable reasons that do get slightly explained. Witches are like crucified basically in this world, not literally. What's the word that I'm looking for? Persecuted, that's the word. Witches are persecuted. So obviously a witch and a witch hunter getting married, probably not gonna end well, but I really love this. I remember disliking the second book, so I'm nervous to reread that one, but high hopes for the third one, and I'm so glad I like this still. Another very chunky book, this is Heart of Flames by Nikki Pau-Preto. This is the second book in the Crown of Feathers series. The third one comes out in a couple weeks and I can't wait. I was nervous about this one because it's so long. And it did feel long, but I liked every page, so it still gets a 5 stars. This follows a girl named Veronica who wants to be a phoenix rider. It follows a very complicated relationship with her sister. There's not a ton more I can say without spoiling things, but these really remind me of Tamora Pierce at her best. There's lots of like lore and history of the world woven in from like letters and stuff like that. And I do love when a girl has to dress up as a boy. That always just, it works for me, you know? Maybe it's the Mulan. But yeah, I really love this. So excited for book 3. I wonder if it's gonna be longer than this. Okay, 2 more books, we're getting there. So I read Ace of Spades. This is so good. It is a queer dark academia thriller, yeah. It covers institutionalized racism and it's so interesting. I picked this up one day meaning to read like 50 pages and then go be a productive human, and I ended up finishing it in one sitting. So I've been recommending this to everyone at work. It's like really Gossip Girl and Get Out vibes combined into one book. So good. And the very last 5-star I read this month was Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. So I've got this little box set here. I did not read this version because I hate mass market paperbacks, so I borrowed a bigger one. And now that I know I like them, I'm ordering like some pretty naked hardbacks from Book Depository. They haven't come yet, but I'm excited. So I was really nervous to read these because I was worried I wouldn't like them. So Brandon Sanderson is obviously like an iconic fantasy writer. I tend to think I'm not gonna like fantasy by white men. But good news, I did. So he manages to write a female main character really well. They're set in a world where people have magic that comes to them from consuming metals. And again, there's an evil empire. We're trying to overthrow it. Pretty standard. Yeah, it's a long book, but I was very into it the whole time. So I'm super excited to continue with the series. And this gives me hope that I'm going to like his 1,000-page books too. So this is the beginning of a new love affair with Brandon Sanderson. Okay, unless I missed something, which is very possible. I did. Yeah, okay. Last book I read very quickly was A Spindle Splintered by Alex E. Harrow. This was a novella. It's like a feminist queer retelling of Sleeping Beauty. And it was very, very good. It was short, because it's a novella. But I liked it a lot, and I don't have any more thoughts on it. So, good ending. So thank you so much for listening to this very long video. I hope you found something that you might be interested in here. I tried to actually give plot summaries, so we'll see when I'm editing if I feel like I definitely missed some, but I gave more plot summaries than usual, so that is good. I'd love to know what you read in June and what one of your favorites was. Maybe I'll add it to my list. But thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye!